Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today to have a deep dive look at one of the most important tools in our toolkit for growing our career, which is LinkedIn. Today we're going to go through kind of three key areas. First, I want to give you an overview of LinkedIn and why there's really no going back, that we all have to embrace this tool. Secondly, 5 tips for how you can improve your own brand and really leverage LinkedIn. And then how to navigate LinkedIn at a detailed level. We'll be looking at some most of the specifics for each of the sections of LinkedIn, so you know more on a granular level what to do to take your profile to the next level of impact. So if we look at LinkedIn and networking in general really as making new friends and keeping and leveraging our old friends, I think that's the best way to look at this process and this kind of tool and this kind of interface we now have with people around the globe in our wider network. Something like this, of course, didn't exist 10 years ago, and we were connecting with friends and family and colleagues in different ways. But this is really changing the face of how we do business and how we hire and recruit and retain and network and build our contacts, even partnerships through the internet. So I think if you can look at LinkedIn as your new best friend and start to brainstorm after today's session, who do you know that's anyone and everyone you've ever met in your life, whether it's through school, volunteering, it's friends, it's family members, it's anybody you've ever known, needs to be on LinkedIn and needs to be connected to you really on LinkedIn. And it's easy to put these kinds of things off, but one day you'll wake up and there won't be any more time to do the things you've always wanted. So do it now. I think that's a good thing to think about as we near the end of the year and into the new year, to set some goals for ourselves about what are some of the things we haven't done yet that we've really been wanting to do. I think investing some time in improving our LinkedIn profile and also really navigating the system, the program, and learning it well takes time. So hey, why not start now? So hopefully I'll give you some tips today that'll help you do that, and then you can take it forward into the new year. So one of the reasons that I think, well, LinkedIn has become such a popular platform and organization is that they're really founded on being purpose-driven in terms of really helping others connect on a professional level and a personal level. And it's quite different than Facebook, as many of you all know. Over the last 5 years, they've had a 5 times increase, so we're looking at 400 million members now globally. And they've also been expanding, obviously, their global employee base to be able to support that. Recently, in this year, we had Imperative, an organization led by Aaron Hurst, that conducted an organizational purpose index and basically went into LinkedIn and surveyed more than 2,000 of their employees across the globe to see how many of their employees were actually purpose-orientated. And it ended up that they found that LinkedIn had twice as many purpose-oriented employees as any other tech industry organization. So the average, rather than most of the other tech industry organizations, which I think is really impressive, especially as the tech industry is a bit behind the curve around sustainability. At least we're seeing that LinkedIn is recruiting and retaining purpose-driven individuals. The other thing is that about 54% of senior managers are on LinkedIn. You often find that CEOs are not on LinkedIn, or some of the more senior people that don't want to be accessed too readily aren't yet on LinkedIn. I think that will actually end up shifting over time. But even so, you've got 54% of senior players in the market that are actually on LinkedIn that you could reach out and access quite easily. One of the figures I want you to just have a look at here is on the right. It says 54% have accepted a LinkedIn request from someone they have never had any contact with at all. And I think that's quite interesting, that whether it's not the best idea necessarily to be reaching out to people that you've not had any contact with, what LinkedIn allows you to do is to reach out to people who have had contact with someone else you know. So it's the, the connection through those first or second degree connections that are really crucial. And I thought it was interesting that one of the reasons people accept requests from those they don't know is that 62% say it's because they see it as a new business opportunity. 70% are accepting those requests just because they work in the same industry. So it might just say sustainability, and I've been known to do that. If I see somebody with a good solid title from a solid brand and I don't know them but they have a common connection, I will potentially accept them even if I don't personally know them. And 57% are saying it's because they've shared that contact, so they have a common person in common. So I think this is really important to have a look at it. I don't encourage you to reach out to random people that you don't know. So I think there has to be a reason and a connecting theme as to why you're reaching out to them and making yourself relevant to them. So you can see, again, either a business opportunity, same industry, or shared contact. If you're meeting those requirements, then I think it's okay to reach out to people that you don't personally know. But be careful accepting invitations from just anyone unless you really see there's a value to connecting with them on a deeper level. Many of us are on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Some of us shy away from social media. It's very time-consuming, a bit overwhelming. I hear people saying, oh, well, I'm not looking for a job, so I don't need to be on LinkedIn. And it's true that LinkedIn is a big recruiting tool. 93% of recruiters are using this platform to find their new top talent. However, it's also the most powerful professional tool. So if you're looking for funding, or you're looking for a new partnership, or you're looking to have people attend an event, there's lots of different ways you can leverage your LinkedIn network. It's not just about being a job seeker. So I look at LinkedIn as a career development tool and a business development tool as much as I do a job seeker tool. And what's nice is that of all the social media, if you're only going to be on one, the best one to be on would be LinkedIn, because that's where 48% of recruiters are posting jobs only on LinkedIn and nowhere else on social media. So if you're on LinkedIn, you're going to get 77% of those job openings you're going to be able to find through LinkedIn. So if you don't have time to be scrolling through all the social media sites, this is a good first and only stop if you are a job seeker. However, again, it's not just about job postings and recruitment. This is going to be a platform for you to build your brand and build your reach and build your influence. And we're going to go into a bit more of that in a minute. So of those 96% of recruiters that are using social media to find their top candidates, 74% of them are very concerned with your average job tenure. And I also often hear that people say, oh, but I have a gap in years, or I have I went on maternity leave, or I did a year of traveling. That's fine, and we might want to fill that gap. We might want to leave that gap empty and have that be part of a conversation in an interview. It's a very individual decision, that is. 34% I thought was interesting are concerned and look at whether or not they have a mutual connection with you. So again, the more connections you can have that are valid, the more likely you're going to have a connection with a recruiter as well. And then that 30% I thought was quite interesting are looking to see if you're committed to professional organizations, and 29% looking at examples of your design work, which I'm going to show you here in a minute of how you would be able to attach that. So design work could be anything from giving a presentation to a report. It doesn't have to be necessarily design specific, but an example of your quality of your work. And recruiters are saying that it's really important that you share your details about your volunteering and your social engagement work, especially in the sustainability space. This is crucial. You should have a pretty robust volunteer section, and that you also are engaging in current events. So 52% are viewing it neutrally and 47% are viewing this positively. So again, showing that you're out there in the market, you're staying up to date, you're following good thought leaders, and you're keeping yourself informed. And 72%, and this is my big stickler point, are saying that if they see mistakes in your spelling or your grammar, that it's going to be looked at negatively. And I couldn't agree more. Your LinkedIn profile, your cover letters, and your CVs should all be absolutely flawless, perfect, without any errors, whether it's even in the size of your hyphens. So make sure you're always getting someone to check these things for you with fresh eyes. As I said, this is a really powerful tool, not only for the job seeker, but this gentleman who is now vice president at electric vehicle company in Silicon Valley had been an investment banker in the automotive sector and had been reached out via LinkedIn from a second-degree contact for his automotive and finance sector expertise. And he ended up launching an automotive technology venture capital fund with a guy out in California from the UK. So they had an 8-hour time difference, and they actually never even met in person until they had both invested 6 months and 500 hours into this joint venture that they were building. So again, it goes to show how much you can do now globally, across the miles, across the time zones, and through second-degree contacts. So this guy was able to actually reinvent himself and his career, and in the meantime also start a joint venture with someone who he was able to vet and build a relationship with virtually. So this is always a bit surprising to people, of how many jobs are actually never even posted publicly, so never even on job sites. If you look at step 4, 30% of jobs are through job postings, and that's really low. When you think about most of us, when we go to look for a career change, we go looking online, what jobs are out there, what is posted, what can you get your hands on easily in terms of job descriptions. But if you look at this a little bit in more detail, to the left of the big blue line is what we call the hidden job market. And that's 55% of the roles that are going to be open in the market are actually being filled without ever being posted externally. And so it's key that you are using either your internal ability to move within your organization to do a job change, or be able to really leverage that 45% of the hiring which is happening around networking. So again, another support for our LinkedIn tool. And I think it's also interesting to see that if you don't have, a perfect match on skills and experience, this is actually helpful, because you can be hired based on your performance and your potential if it's through someone that you know, versus if you're just a piece of paper with a name at the top, they're really going to be sizing you up against your experience and your skill set, and you're going to have to really hit every single bucket and box that they're looking to tick. So what this means is you need to probably organize your strategy and action plan around this weighting of spending 60% of your time on live relationship building and 20% of your time on social media networking, and only 20% of your time looking at those job postings. So it's really 80% networking, the green bit, and 60% being live networking, and the 20% being your online searches through LinkedIn. What you're going to want to try to do is convert that 20% into the 60%. In other words, reaching out to someone initially through LinkedIn, but trying to convert that into a live coffee or conversation over Skype, where you can actually see the person and start to build a more quality relationship. So now we're going to look at 5 kind of headline tips for how you could start to think about branding yourself on LinkedIn. The first one is really, what is your story? I think a lot of us go into the CV process or our personal branding process or LinkedIn as a tool thinking just put it all out there so that if someone's looking for that one thing that I might have left out, at least it's there, and let that audience or that reader figure out what's most relevant to them. But actually that doesn't really work because we have a short attention span. As a recruiter, we look at a CV for 40 seconds, and it's probably going to be even less on LinkedIn. We're going to scroll very quickly, look for keywords, look for key company names, and not spend too much time hanging out on your page. So the key piece is that you're only really getting this one chance to make a good impression and being able to pull together a storyline around where you've been coming from in your career to date and where that's positioning you for next. So you've actually got to grab their attention with something quite compelling and relevant in your story about who you are and what you do. And again, I think it's important to note that LinkedIn only gives you one profile chance, so you're not able to reinvent yourself 10 times for 10 different types of jobs. You're really going to have to do the targeting work first to say, what sector do I want to be in? What sustainability issues am I most passionate about and most knowledgeable about? What are the 4 key skills that I'm offering the market? And really start to aim, what I call aim your compass around your target market first, so that you can then build up a story on LinkedIn that's going to resonate for most of the people you're going to be trying to network with. If you try to cast your net really wide, your LinkedIn profile isn't going to resonate for any one of those 10 target audiences. So the more focused you can get, the more impact you'll have. Keep it short and simple. LinkedIn is not just a digital version of your paper CV. As I said, our attention spans are much shorter online, so you're going to want to make your profile really easily digestible, making sure you're using keywords that a recruiter or a colleague might be looking for. You're going to avoid using long paragraphs and jargon. And you're going to make sure that you've done your homework about what those 5 to 10 keywords are before you build your profile. So how is your target audience and their employees and the contacts you're wanting to kind of reach out to, how are they talking about their experience? Are they using language like carbon? Are they talking about energy efficiency? Are they talking about environmental issues? Are they talking water, waste, social impact, human rights? You've got to be able to match those keywords and try to get as specific as you can. Words like social impact and environment now are becoming really quite vague because there's so many different layers that sit underneath those. So while keeping it simple and short, make sure that you're actually also keeping it quite targeted and as niche as you can. You can think about this as a platform, like you're an advertiser promoting yourself. This is really your marketing platform, and it's helping tell your audience, potential employers, potential partners, why and how much they need you. So we don't want to be shy about our achievements. We want to actually tell the world how amazing we are with compelling text that's backed up with proven achievements. One way to do this too is to solicit recommendations from your current and past colleagues, because when you have people vouching for you, that immediately gives you the credibility and gravitas that is often hard to do for yourself in descriptive language. And as you know, nothing sells a product better than glowing reviews from people who have used that product or worked with you, in this case, firsthand. Now smile, because you are on candid camera. This is the most important thing, I think, on LinkedIn. I've seen so many profiles with a shoulder of an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend at a party still showing up on in the side of a blurry LinkedIn photo. And while it's important to leverage your LinkedIn profile with relevant and intriguing content, none of that's going to matter if your photo is scaring off potential employers and you don't look like you're taking yourself, your career, and your brand seriously. So if you don't, if you can't afford to hire a professional, you can always get a friend who has a lens camera to take a photo of you outside, so you've got the depth of field, as you see here, with the trees blurry behind. You're going to want it to look natural and approachable. And usually keeping the background simple, is just a couple of colors or a simple white or gray, but making sure the light on your face really illuminates your eyes and you're able to really almost connect with someone through your photo. And of course, my fifth tip, a final tip here, is work that network. As we know, your extended network in LinkedIn is probably what's going to be the most powerful. One way of looking at your second and third degree connections is to go into the profile of one of your most relevant contacts, so someone that you think has a good network, and click the button that says See All Connections in the bottom right of their page. If your first connection with him, you'll be able to do that. Then you can go through and scan for people, companies, industries, and positions that you'd like to target, and then ask that first connection for an introduction. You've got to be careful not to haphazardly do this, though, because LinkedIn can suspend your account if people complain that they don't know you. So just be quite strategic and organized about this process. And when you reach out to someone, make sure that you've researched their past positions, their interests, and schools and education, and try to see if there's any kind of common ground. Never just say you're looking for a job at their company, because nobody's really going to have time to talk to you. You need to show an interest in who they are and their career, and maybe even offer something on the table, some market intelligence, an article that might be of interest to them, but something that makes them want to connect to you and that shows you've taken the time to look at their profile and care about who they are as a person. And again, if you do make that personal connection through an in-mail or email, do follow up with a live conversation either on Skype or coffee. There's still nothing that's going to replace the in-person relationship building. So now we're going to dive in a bit to the nuts and bolts of LinkedIn. And I have kind of a 3-hit list. If you do nothing else, make sure you're on there every day. Even if you just do it for 5 minutes while you're having your coffee in the morning or during your lunch break, get on there for 5 minutes a day and just poke around, learn the tool, post new articles and content, make a new connection or two, and follow the key thought leaders that are giving content to the market that is relevant for you and your target audience. The second thing is to follow a few of those dream companies that you would like to be associated with. A, you can get their automatic job postings, and B, you can start to see if you know anyone in those organizations. If they look at you, they'll see that you're following them. And it just shows, again, that more targeted approach to who your audience is and who you would like to work for. So if you're applying to me and I work at Unilever and you're not following me, I'm going to think, how committed are you really to getting a job with me? And recruiters do look at this. So it's important for you to get really clear what kinds of organizations and sectors you're going to target, and then follow them on LinkedIn. And when you get a job lead that you might want to apply for, and let's say you found it through that 30% of job postings externally online, the first thing you're going to want to do before you even say, oh, I think I could do that job, I'm going to dive in and do the application. The first thing you want to do is to go into LinkedIn and see if you have any first or second connections in that organization, preferably in the same team, but if not, in the organization. And then you're going to want to reach out to them either through an in-mail, if it's a second connection, or through a first connection introduction. And you're going to want to find out a little bit more about the company. Why is this position open? Who else is in the team? What kind of people are they looking for? What kind of culture is it? Find out as much intel as you possibly can before applying. And one reason is that oftentimes these roles are still posted on job boards or on recruitment sites that are already in final rounds of interviewing. I find that happens about 50% of the time. So make sure that, and that also happens even if it's a rolling application. So make sure that you find out where they are in the process before you spend 4 to 6 hours doing a customized application. This also allows you to ask that first or second connection if they would be comfortable with hand delivering your CV and cover letter to the hiring manager. that increases your chances of getting the job by 60%. So, you're greatly improving your chances if it's an internal referral. They might even get a kickback for doing that. Oftentimes companies pay for their staff to help them recruit. So you're doing them a favor in some ways, but also they will greatly increase the chances that you would be coming to the top of the pile. First things we need to do, though, is to get your settings straight. Oftentimes we go in and start fiddling with our LinkedIn profile, not realizing that your network is seeing every time you change just a full stop or a period, it's going out to your whole network saying you've changed something on your profile. So the first thing to do is to go into your account settings under profile and turn on or off your activity broadcasts. If you've gotten a new job and something you want to share with your whole network, then you would turn back on your activity broadcast to make that change. The second thing is sometimes we don't want people to see our connections. So I've got about 3,500 connections. I don't really necessarily want all my other connections to see those. But the default in LinkedIn is that your first degree connections will be able to see your other first degree connections. And many people have complained saying they'd like this to be more like a person by person setting that you could customize and not an all or nothing, but that's not yet available on LinkedIn. So again, you can go back into account settings profile and then select who can see your connections, and that again lets you customize it a bit. If you are looking around on LinkedIn and looking at other people's profiles and you don't want them to see it's you, you can also go into account settings profile and select what others see when you've viewed their profile. So you can actually be anonymous. However, if you want to grow your brand and show that you're engaged, show that you're active in the market, it's a really good way to kind of subtly be connecting with people. So I would encourage you to actually let others see your profile if you're comfortable with that. If you're getting a bunch of group emails, you can join up to 40 groups. We're going to look at that in a minute. But if you're getting these like automated emails from them and they're starting to bother you because you're just getting an onslaught, just pick 2 or 3 groups that you really find the content valuable and keep those settings to receive those emails, and then let the other ones go and just turn off the email alerts. And then last but not least, some of us use LinkedIn a bit like Twitter or Facebook, and we do status updates. This isn't as common yet on LinkedIn, but you do end up kind of getting these silly status updates at the top of your screen. So all you need to do if you don't want to see those anymore is just move your cursor to the right of the update and click hide. And that way you'll clean up kind of your view when you're in your own profile. So that's that list of privacy controls. You'll see that when you go into your account settings profile. And next, you want to make sure you're on the right account and that you've done your research in there to see which plan you think is best for you. If you are looking for a job or wanting to be recruited, Job Seeker is worth the $30 a month. And if you're still within a company and your business would pay for it, it's always nice to be able to join as a business account, which is $60 a month. So you'd hope that your employer would pay for that. But again, it allows you to have much more access. You get 15 in-mail messages a month if you're on the business account, and 3 if you're in the Job Seeker. If you want more in-mail credits, though, you can always pay for them per in-mail. So the other good thing is you can see who's viewed your profile if they haven't anonymized that. And you'll move to the top of the recruiter list, and you'll also be able to see how you compare to other candidates. So you'll just want to do a little bit of a deep dive, see which plan is best for you and which one you want to go for. Usually they give you a month free trial, so you can see if you like it or not. Okay, on to the headline and summary. So this is a bit more about you now, your story, your keywords, and how we're going to build your platform here. So I often get asked, well, what are the keywords and search phrases that should be included in an impact profile? And obviously, this greatly depends, again, on who are you targeting, what is the language they're using, and what do you want to be known for and resonating with your target audience for. So in general, the text under your name should actually be keywords unless you've already got your dream job. So unless you have a really impressive title and company you're working for, I'll show you this here in a minute, you want to actually just use keywords. And you'll want to, again, match those to the company or the role or the mission of the organization. So you might want to be including a variety of keywords here so that you can be searched by all of them. So renewable energy, solar, wind, and energy efficiency are all quite similar, but you might want to be coming up on a keyword search from a recruiter with all of those. So you might have them all in that tagline just under your name. So this is the headline place at the very top, just under your name. And here's some examples. So we've got B. Perez, who actually uses her title and her company name because she's the CSO at Coca-Cola. And the same with Mark Meany. He's the executive director at a leading business school. And so again, he's using his title and his organization name. However, if you want to be known for, again, the search engine optimization keywords, you might just put those keywords like Scott's done here so that they're coming up, and if someone quickly looks at him, they have a general idea of what he's offering the market. The same with Courtney here, who's a little bit more on the impact investing side of things. And you can see that some people are putting the acronym of their either certification or their degrees next to their name, so that's coming up when their names are being shown throughout LinkedIn and giving, again, a bit more credibility to their achievements. So here's an example of more keywords and where they show up on the profile. So I often get asked, how is LinkedIn summary different than doing a bio? So I usually start clients off with the CV. After we've done the CV and the profile, 4-line profile at the top of a CV, we use that to build a half-page bio, which is basically a Word document in third person. If you were speaking at a conference or putting something up on a website, that would be your bio. So it'd be third person, again, your story of your career and how it's relevant to where you're going next. In LinkedIn, basically, you're taking that bio and you're turning it into first person with a much more conversational tone. So it can be a little bit snappier. You can, again, have it be around 2,000 characters, which is quite long. So you want to make sure you have spacing between each line, so it's really easy for someone to read it. And so in other words, each sentence has its own paragraph, meaning there's a hard return between each. And again, making it a bit personable. So you can add some humor, you can add whatever it is that you think allows your personality to show a little bit in this space. It doesn't have to be quite as formalized as a bio or a CV would be, or a cover letter. So here's just a quick example. So here's the LinkedIn summary section. The first bit is your pitch. So this is going to be about 50 to 100 words describing your professional brand. And if you want to include a mission or an objective, that's fine, but you don't necessarily have to. But you can see very quickly this person in 3 sentences, I know everything I need to know if I want to read on or not. We know what sectors, we know what key sustainability issues, we know what skills, and we know where they're going next. The second part is going to be your top 3 to 5 career achievements. I prefer these to be a little shorter than this, but this person wanted to weave in some key words like the name of this documentary series, the name of the fellowship, the name of James Cameron. So he's putting in a lot of key words of organizations, which is what's actually making this a bit heavier, which I don't mind too much because, again, the eye goes to those words that are initially capitalized, so you're able to see them quite quickly. So again, we're seeing, okay, he's been trained by Al Gore, he was featured in a couple of movies, and he's been quoted in a couple of magazines. So he's got some gravitas. Then you're going to want to just put a section of either briefly of your qualifications if you have them. You don't necessarily need to do your education here because that's already going to be up in the section with your name up at the top. But you can if you want to, if that's something that you're proud of, or it's more recent. And then you're going to want to also put in a line or two about any volunteer leadership or something personal about yourself that, again, makes you accessible and somebody that I might want to talk to. Another nice feature of LinkedIn, as opposed to your CV, is that it allows you to attach graphics to showcase your work. And remember, we were talking about that earlier, that the recruiters really like to see your work. And so if you select these well, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 maximum graphical displays of your work where they could click through and either see a video of you or see a report that you did or see a picture of you shaking hands with someone that's, you know, instrumental in this space, whatever you think you're proud of and is most important to showcase your work. But again, it needs to be somewhat graphical, so you might need to just make sure there's a photo that's attached with it or something, not just a PDF of a printed page or something. Then we're getting down the page a bit to the next section, which I would say is experience. So you'd have summary at the top, and then you have experience. You could either have education after that or volunteering, depending on where you are in your career and how important your volunteering is. If your education seems to be more impressive than your pro bono work, I would have that coming in right under experience, and then volunteering can move down the page a bit. So one thing also you want to be able to put in is your posts. This actually goes to the top of the screen usually. So this is any blogs that you've maybe posted on Twitter that you've then also posted on LinkedIn. This will also show up at the top of your screen. So this is just so that you know that you can use this platform somewhat like you use Twitter. Okay, so in this section, you're going to want to make sure that you've used all of the additional information you possibly can. They will be flagging this to you oftentimes to say, you know, do you need to complete your profile? Are you in, I think they tell you if you're like an expert profile in LinkedIn or not, meaning you've completed as many sections as you possibly can. So make sure you go through this section. It's a little hidden at the top of the page near your summary section. And make sure you expand this and see if there's any other sections you could actually complete and fill in as well. The experience section is always a given. The volunteering section is where you're going to want to put your volunteer experience, because the organization section here doesn't allow you to attach it to the organization in order to get the logo. So I'll show you that in a second. So how should the experience section be the same or different from your resume or CV? Basically, you've got your 2 main tools that I was mentioning. You've got your CV and your bio, and they both map into LinkedIn. However, as we talked about, your bio is actually going to change. Sorry, the arrows are missing on that, but your bio is going to turn into the LinkedIn summary, but into first person, and with those paragraphs breaks between each sentence. Your CV, if you've done it with me, you'll have what it's called accomplishment statements, and that will be the different statements will be about 2 to 2.5 lines on a CV in a bullet point. But they will be then converted into the LinkedIn experience section, although you'll be shortening those statements to be only 1 line. So they'll be kind of cut in half. And my formula for accomplishment statements basically has the front part of the sentence being the wow factor, and then the second part of the sentence is the how. So it's how you delivered on that result. So in LinkedIn, we usually only end up bringing over the result or the wow factor. Again, the experience detail should be about you and your accomplishments that are proven and impressive, not necessarily about the organization. I'll show you an example of that in a second here. So the accomplishment statements, again, you're going to want to make sure that they're, if you've done them in a functional format, for instance, or a skills-based CV, you might have had them sitting under a skill like stakeholder engagement or strategy or project management. LinkedIn forces us to use a chronological format, so we would then map those accomplishment statements from the skill category we might have framed them under and map them into our chronological of where we did them. Here's an example of the organization focused versus the you focused. The reason we don't actually use the organization detail on a LinkedIn profile is because I can double click on the words Omidyar Network and find everything out about the Omidyar Network if I'm interested. This is also why we don't put links, web links on CVs, because if someone wants to Google it quickly, they will, but you don't need to actually link to it. So this also, we don't need to have so much information about the organization because we still don't know what this person did on the impact investing team, and we're hiring the person, not Omidyar Network. So a better example is below, where we're looking at what did this client manager do designing and implementing a new system and managing and supporting account penetration. So again, on that one on the bottom, you probably don't need to say global client manager again. You could just say, you know, for premier client partnerships, colon, and then turn those two statements into accomplishment statements. So right now they're talking about the how at the beginning instead of the why or the wow. So it's telling me what they could do or what their responsibilities were, but again, it could have started with the word increased partner activity, for instance, because that's really the wow factor in that first bullet point. So again, here you can see a little bit about the organization at the top. I don't mind if it's one sentence like that, but again, that was two sentences, and again, I could double click on that and find out more about the organization. I don't really care what the role of Director of Global Partnerships is. I care more about the achievements of what you did in that role in order to exceed or meet the responsibilities. So this to me looks much more like responsibility statements. Lead external partnerships, build and manage, lead corporate responsibility. Again, I'm not really sure why you're doing those things and why they were impactful or important to your organization. So that's why this specific example is a bit weak. They also wasted a whole line saying role as Director of Global Partnerships when we see that at the top. I do like this partnership leads include, though, in a list of the organization names, although I think I'd probably put that bit at the top. This one's much stronger. Again, you've got short one-liners or a little bit more, but very clear, specific achievements. Identified a savings, saved something in energy. You know, a lot of this is about energy efficiency, so they're talking a lot about the savings. Again, looking at that third sentence, maybe auditing an organization is not as much an impact statement, but again, the honest company was not where he was working, so again, he's bringing that in to show what he did on behalf of that other organization. So I still like that being included there. And we want to make sure that we include all of our pro bono leadership, all of our volunteering, and again, you want this all to go into the volunteering section because that will allow you to type in the name of the organization, so Global Summit of Women, and as you start typing it in, it'll give you a drop-down list of all the organizations in LinkedIn. And that will then allow you to select it in the drop-down menu, which will give you a link, which will link it to their LinkedIn page and return a logo for you on your LinkedIn page. So it just makes it look a lot more valid if you've got a logo there sitting next to it. And it also allows the reader to double-click through and link to see more about the organization. So this is really important to highlight this on both your CV and your LinkedIn profile. Don't necessarily need to go back more than 10 years. Some of us have been volunteering most of our lives, and if we're getting up there in age, you don't need to include it all, but include the ones that you think are most impressive, most relevant, and going to really resonate with your audience. Again, thinking about those organizations you volunteered for and reaching out to people that have also volunteered or worked at those organizations in order to build on your own network. So going and searching on those organizations and seeing what first or second degree connections you might be able to have and leverage and connect with. So we've got references, groups, and InMail to look at next. References, as I said earlier, gives you lots of credibility in the market. So even if people don't really read the whole thing, it's a nice thing just to have up there in case people want to see that. You can see here there's a mixture of this person is a policy advisor at Google, so he's he likes that title and that company, so he's putting it in there. Whereas Liz at the bottom is more of a consultant, so she's putting in those keywords so you get a flavor of what she does. I like the top and bottom photo. Chelsea's photo, again, looks like it could have been taken at a wedding or at a black tie party. So it's not as professional as I probably would have liked. Again, she's using her title and her company name because, again, Etsy's so well known in this space, and her title is saying what she does. So when you go out and ask for recommendations, you're going to have to ask for them. Most people won't do them without you asking. I always say to and the same goes if you're asking a first connection to introduce you to a second connection, is to write the blurb for them. So offer to write the blurb. Would you mind introducing me? Would you mind doing a recommendation or a reference for me? If yes, I'm happy to write the draft blurb, and you can edit it as you see fit. That saves that person so much time and having to think about it from scratch that they'll probably be much more likely to want to help you. So there's a lot of different groups on LinkedIn, and it can also be a bit overwhelming. You can join 50 of them, but again, you're going to want to do your research on which ones are the best for you to be following in terms of location, keywords, the type of people that are members of those groups. Usually the ones with 1,000 members have the most traction and get the most interesting dialogues going. But you're also going to want to make sure you're joining the groups that your contacts or the people you're targeting to work for or the thought leaders that you're following. Go in and look at their groups and then see if those groups are then also relevant for you. So that's a really easy way to quickly get a sense of which groups might be the most helpful. So here's just 10 LinkedIn groups for impact job seekers. And again, this is a really difficult list to give to a group over a webinar because each of you are going to have a very different target and area of interest. So again, I would say go in and look at other people you know in LinkedIn and see who they're following. You can also do that, by the way, for thought leaders and see which thought leaders they're following. I always really look at that as a recruiter. Who are you paying attention to in the market? So what is an InMail? A lot of people don't quite know how to use them, and it makes them a little bit uncomfortable. But actually, they're a really powerful tool to be able to reach out to someone in your network, a second connection, for instance, you wouldn't really have access to their email. If you have a first connection in their contact section just under their photo, you'll be able to get access to their email if they've put it into their profile. But if you have a second connection, you don't have their email so you don't have any way of really reaching them. So if you're a job seeker, you would get 3 InMails a month, and you probably need to be doing more like 3 a week if you're really an active job seeker. But it's really critical to be able to have this tool because it allows you to quickly tell your story to someone and connect on a level that's going to be of interest to them and reach out. It's basically like going, with someone on a blind date or a cold call, but you're actually going to have had so much information on them already that if you research their background, look at who you might have in common, and think about what something might be of interest to them, then you'd be able to write a very short introductory in-mail to be able to connect. And I think that the next step then again always needs to be pick up the phone. You know, I sent you an email last Wednesday, just wanted to follow up. And at that point, you probably can get access to them through the main switchboard of their company. So it definitely works. In-mails, I've seen them work time and again with my clients. This client was applying to the Skoll Global Threats Fund. And while we were on the phone working together, I went into LinkedIn to see, I pulled up Skoll Global Threats Fund. I then went in to look at my first and second connections there. I found one of my seconds who was the Director of Policy and Communications because she was applying to a comms role. And I quickly scrolled down through his profile and noticed that he had attended Pomona College, which is where I knew that this client had worked. So I helped Anne to write this in-mail to him, which turned into an interview within 24 hours. So because they had this link of a small, college in California that they had both gone to 20 years ago, she was able to actually get a live conversation with someone that she was a third connection to, because we were first, he was my second, so he would have been her third. So you can again see how powerful the game is. So here's an example of what you're going to cover in your in-mail. It's going to be very short because there's a word limit to this. But you just want to quickly say, what do you have in common, so that they're going to want to talk to you. So we're both alums from X college. I'm working through a recruitment agency applying for this role. You may or may not put that in, again, depending on the context of what you're asking of them. And then I thought you might like this article. She included something that was of interest to him. I'm reaching out to see if you'd be willing to give me 10 minutes of your time to share your thoughts about the organization and your experience working there. You might want to just ask more generally about their career journey. People love talking about themselves. And I'd love to get your insights about the organization's challenge. You might also then offer and give you some of my insights about where the market is going and how the fund could best position to scale in the coming year. So there's lots of different ways you can do this. But again, you want to be really clear what you're asking of them. You want to be really clear where you're going, and then try to make it as personal as possible. So for homework, you're going to want to make sure you go and upload a profile photo. You get that headline with your search engine optimization words. You're transferring that bio, third-person story into a first-person LinkedIn summary. You're detailing your job history, but with one-line accomplishment statements. You're going to make sure you've populated as many sections as you can from those drop-down sections. I would say reach out and try to get at least 10 recommendations in the coming, let's say, month. You're going to join your 50 groups after you've checked out some of your key contacts and which groups they're members of. Again, following the thought leaders that they may be following or others that you find are providing good content. And then you're going to become a job seeker or upgrade yourself to that business profile. So there's kind of a lot to do here that I've left you with, but I've also left you with a LinkedIn critique form. So hopefully this, as a tool for yourself, you can actually now go to your LinkedIn profile. First thing you're going to do, remember, is to change all your privacy settings so that you're not sending things out to people. Once you've got your strategy about your settings done, then you can go in and start to look and see if you're ticking the boxes on all of my key areas of this critique. You might want to then just write yourself a few notes. If you don't just automatically, if you're not ticking the box, write yourself a few notes about what you need to go back and change. So you're almost giving yourself a personal critique. This is also something that I offer. If anybody wants to do some further work together, I'm happy to do that as well. And then you're just going to want to make sure, again, that you've done all your homework and that you're building that network through your in-mails. So I would say if you could get your schedule together so that you're making sure you're spending that 80% of your time on your networking and 20% of your time on the job boards. Of that 80% of the time, you're going to be doing about 20% of it on LinkedIn and 60% of that in live conversations, coffees, Skype sessions, etc. Once you've mapped out your strategy, you can then go in and start to unpack your contacts and building up. I would try to get at least 5 contacts a week, so 1 a day. Try to reach out to 1 new contact a day. And I would try to be sending at least, an in-mail per contact if they're going to be second degrees, but preferably you're getting those contacts made through first connections or people that you've already got their email addresses for. If you feel like you've maximized all your connections, your next stage would then be to give yourself a target of doing 3 in-mails a week on an ongoing basis. So I'm often reaching out, even if it's not an in-mail, it could just be an email, but to someone in your market. So today I saw an interesting article from Harvard Business Review. I thought of Aaron Hurst at Imperative, who had done that piece of work with LinkedIn on their purpose-oriented employees, and I had met him recently at the Net Impact conference, so I sent him a 1-line, thought you might enjoy this article, great to see you at Net Impact, stay in touch, and sent him the article. And that was it. It was a touch point. So those are the kinds of touch points that are really going to help you improve your ongoing kind of brand and also engagement with your network. And LinkedIn is so powerful to help you do that. So way forward with us, it'd be great if you all could connect with me on Twitter at Walk of Life Coach. Feel free to follow Walk of Life Consulting on LinkedIn, and you can register on my contact page on walkoflifeconsulting.com if you'd like to be on our newsletter. We do about 4 newsletters a year with free tips and hot jobs. We also are posting our hot jobs and tips on all of our LinkedIn and Twitter feeds. A little bit on Facebook, but a bit less so. Facebook I tend to use a bit more for the personal. So I hope this was useful to everyone. You guys have lots of homework. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to email me and stay in touch. Let me know when you've got your new LinkedIn profile up and I'll have a look. And thank you very much for your time and attention today.